This week on KNN, we're launching a brand new fiber crafts related news show. One of the biggest names in the industry has new ownership, and we take a first look at the Crafty Witch's Guide to Cord Magic at the review desk. All this and more in this week's episode of Knit News Now. Do 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 do. Welcome to KNN. Knit News Now. This is your roundup of what's happening right now across the wider fiber arts community. I'm your host, Katie Rempe. Whether you're a crafter, designer, shop owner, or simply love fiber arts in general, this show is designed to help you stay informed, inspired, and connected to what's happening across our community. Today's top story is Knit News officially launches today to bring you amazing top stories like our co-top story, SKACEL's new ownership. There's a lot of blogs, YouTube series, podcasts out there that offer people their perspective, but they don't necessarily have all the experience that I happen to have. And I'm excited to share all of that with you to offer a unique lens on what's happening in our community when it comes to crafting, yarn, fiber, and more to help keep you more informed to see what's happening in our industry. Which is why I'm excited to start with our first top story that isn't announcing the arrival of this show. That is SKACEL, SKACELed? That's right, announced July 7th in their newsletter. SKACEL's president, Rob Delmont, has now acquired SKACEL from past owner Karin SKACEL. Good news for us, not private equity. In fact, Rob has worked at SKACEL for almost 30 years. You might recall, I worked at SKACEL as their creative director for 5 years, and so I'm very excited for their new chapter, and I also have a little interview with their new owner, Rob Delmont, to share with you in our next video. So if you're excited for that, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Fiber Flash! Some other quick headlines I'm excited to share with you this week. The Fiber Witch Festival has officially opened its applications if you want to be a vendor. I was just there this past year, and I can tell you that thing does a business and people are ready to buy. I've also recently published a brand new pattern after a while. That is my Spark Scarf. More on that in our Pattern Pulse. If you have headlines or news that you'd like me to share in this segment, please reach out by commenting or shooting me an email at knitnewsnow@gmail.com. And now, Pattern Pulse. Oh, hi there. This week's featured pattern is my pattern. I'm doing a little shameless self-promotion because I, after all, am a knitwear designer first and am still knitwear designing. So if you're interested in looking at any of my patterns, they're all on Ravelry. Light from Lantern is where you can find them. This is my Spark Scarf. It has a little loop here that secures the end so that it kind of turns into a cowl that never comes off. You can turn it a little bit this way to one side to get a look that has more eyelets. Or you can turn it the other direction and you get the thinner area that's doing the increase, and then the tassel is a little bit more on the side there. You can also double loop it around and have it like real tight up against the neck. It's called Spark because if you're going through a bit of a knitting rut, this will help you get your spark back, and it is so fast to knit. Plus, it has just enough interest where there's a section of increasing, and then there's a section of eyelets, and then there's a section of decreasing. So nothing ever goes for too long, just enough to keep you interested, just wanting to go to that little next step. So you'll be finished before you know it. And it takes about 30 grams of fingering weight yarn. Although, final example, I made this one out of Swaineo tweed, also a SKACEL yarn. And even though it's a little thicker, it's more like a DK weight. It is just a little bit wider, a little bit longer, but so cute. Still just written just as the pattern said, even though it's not fingering weight yarn. Blocked amazing, so cute. So if you have a little bit of leftover yarn, or you have just like one single skein, or you want to do like a matching set for you and a friend, a 100-gram skein could definitely get you two. Both of these examples, by the way, are made in Fluffy Fingering by UU Yarns. Up next, the review desk. Today I'm reviewing The Crafty Witch's Guide to Cord Magic, the art of braiding and knotting spell cords. This book was sent to me by the publisher to review since magical making is my whole gig. And of course, I'm excited to share my thoughts about it with you. First of all, it was published by Wiser, and the MSRP is $18.95. It totals out at 166 pages, and it's a bit of a bigger book, sort of more like those paperbacks that are becoming more popular, the larger size as opposed to the old trade paperbacks. The size of this book is pretty big, but it isn't too thick, so it should still be easy to travel with. The publisher describes it as a detailed guide that combines ancient wisdom and modern practice, teaching readers how to craft their own powerful and personalized spell cords. So who's this book for? I would say curious crafters who are looking to dip their toes into the world of magic, making their making more intentional. This book does a really good job at explaining a lot of basics, a lot of foundational ways to add magical layers into the cords, and at the end, there's a lot of examples of different types of cords. So who's this book for? I'd say it's for curious crafters who are new to the magical scene or who want to be re-inspired by basics with a slew of spell examples. If you're a more advanced magical practitioner, you may find this more on the foundational side, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't glean a gem or two from it like all foundational books tend to do for me. And of course, if you're a person who is building a rich library full of resources of how threads and cords are magical, this one is definitely one to add. Here are some things that stood out to me. First of all, they include photos. So there's little graphs, there's especially of the spell cords themselves. It's very handy to actually have photos of what they're talking about as examples, because not all books do. A lot of them are just descriptions, so you have to use your mind's eye, or there's only like one photo on the front cover. This one didn't spare that expense. However, just because I am really into paper and typography, I've published books before, and so I might notice things that probably other people don't. One thing that I did notice was I was not a fan of the font that's used in the main paragraphs. They're a little bit italicized, and for some reason I had a hard time focusing on that. Also, the paper itself was just a little bit thinner, kind of almost reminded me of like newspaper a little bit. So that I didn't love, but that isn't to say anything about the content within the book, which is good. So take that part with a grain of salt. Anything else I think you should know before buying? Well, there are other cord magic books out there, which is something you might find when you go to look this one up. In fact, I have interviewed on my podcast Knit a Spell 2 other authors who have written books on the topic, but have approached it from entirely different ways. The first one that came to mind was, of course, cord magic. Tapping into the power of string, yarn, twists, and knots. Interestingly enough, Brandy Williams, who wrote this one through Llewellyn, she approaches making the cords by twisting them, more like if you use yarn, you will understand that looking more like a skein. So she teaches you how to essentially make little skeins as your cord magic, where Lauren Morris has approached this more through a braiding technique and then adding things onto that. So lots of shared things that could work together. You could end up reading both of these and have an even better understanding on how to utilize things from different angles. And if you're looking for an even more crafty version, that's maybe like Craft Forward Magic Second, Mystical Stitches by Christy Johnson. Story Publishing is going to be the one for you. I love this book. Ooh, again, I just really love books. And so I don't usually love hardcovers because of how much space they bring, but this one is sort of like a textbook. So I like that it's hardcover. It's matte. It has this actual embroidered piece that she made for the cover on it, which, hold on, that's the inside. It's the other side of the embroidery. Anyway, this one is really great if you're an embroiderer. Lots of crafts can include embroidery, even if you're like more knitting centric like me. I embroider on things all the time, plus I just like embroidery too. So many crafts, right? And so if you're into something more like magical embellishment and personal empowerment, this one's really good, Christy Johnson. And like I said, I have interviews about both of these books with both of the authors on my podcast Knit a Spell that you can find in the description if you're interested. And by the way, If you're interested in me adding Lauren Morris to my collection of interviews, let me know, and I'll reach out to her to schedule an interview. Today's Lantern feature is an interview with the brand new host of Knit News Now. I'm very excited to have Katie in the studio with me to share why she's decided to start this show, why now, and what makes her qualified to do so. Katie, thanks for joining. Thank you so much for having me, Katie. I really appreciate your time and having me in the studio today. And if I may say so, you look marvelous. Why, thank you. I think actually we are both pulling off this color really well, am I right? You're too kind. What first got you into the world of crafting, the fiber arts community? It must have been college that perhaps prepared you from taking this from hobby to career path? Not even in a direct way. When I was in fashion school, I thought I was going to be sewing probably ultimately for theater because I still like to do the sewing part. But by the end, I had done one machine knitting class and had an idea that I'd like to do something in the future with that, but didn't really think it was probably an option. So when did things go from fashion to specifically knitting? When I graduated, there was actually not a lot of job options, so that's where I found myself working at a local yarn store. After that, that's when things accidentally found my way into Washington, where I ended up working at SKACEL through the Fiber Factor. It's a deep cut, if anyone remembers that. No, wait, stop right there. What the heck is the Fiber Factor? So SKACEL hosted the Fiber Factor, and because of that, we had a relationship. And so when I found myself in Washington, I ended up getting a job after I reached out. And I mean, there was more steps than that. Don't just email them asking for a job. I mean, maybe do, I don't know. But for me, that's how it worked. You chose to leave your job as creative director at SKACEL to start your own business. I know I loved working at SKACEL. It's the dream job, but I was doing less and less designing, and I thought, you know what? I really like to return to a more forward-facing interface with people who actually do the knitting. So that's when I decided to leave and start my own business. And that's when I leaned into doing the patterns more, started my own podcast, Knit a Spell, and magical making has sort of been my whole thing ever since. It's a bold choice. So how did going back to becoming a designer and a podcast host make you decide that Knit News Now needed to happen now? I decided to create Knit News Now because maybe it's just me, but this year has seemed like there have been so many big changes in our industry. Between Joann's closing, people getting sold to private equity who used to be family owned, and just general changes from the course of time and trends changing. I thought, I know a lot of people in the industry from various areas. Why not be the person that people turn to share the information with the world? Which is what I hope this show offers, a community online for people to share what's going on and keep us all connected in what we love. Wow. Well, I, for one, am very excited to see where Knit News Now goes in the future, how it develops over time, and what news stories they can break to you first. Katie, thanks so much for your time. I'm sure our viewers loved it, and we look forward to seeing you again really soon. Thank you for your time, and thank you for having me. I hope to be on again soon. Coming up next, Community Corner. I want to help spread the word of things happening in your community. I'm talking guild news, charity projects, yarn shop events, festival announcements, finished objects, questions for future episodes, ideas for interviews, topics for future episodes, or requests for interviews. I want to hear it all. Make sure to leave comments or reach out to me via email at knitnewsnow@gmail.com. Looking ahead, in our next episode, we'll have our exclusive interview with Rob Delma, the new owner of SKACEL. More fiber-related industry headlines, another Pattern Pulse feature, and of course, another Review Desk recommendation. That's this week's edition of Knit News Now. If there's something happening in your local fiber community, leave a comment to let me know. Your story might just appear in a future episode. I'm Katie Rempe. Thanks for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you next time.